This story is completely true, and I'm describing it to the best of my ability. Doppelgänger means double walker in German, and in folk stories it is like your evil twin. It can also be a supernatural entity associated with bad omens and misfortune, an exact replica of yourself that has no explanation. But it is not just someone alike yourself, it is you, your living image. There are many references in literature about this entity, like when your shadow has its own life. Someone looking at you on the other side of the mirror. A twin nobody knows that exists. An astral projection, and many more. But what if the legends are all true? What if there is a fantastic dark meaning associated to its presence? And what if really means something bad? So, here is the first time I talk with details about the encounters that other persons have had of me, without me actually being there. If you saw me, you would instantly recognize me. I don't have the average looks of the people in my country, nor the eyes, hair color, or voice. Plus, I have a scar on my face that, although I came to like, makes my features even more exotic. I'm not saying I'm pretty, I just stand out. My dressing style is also quite unique, so people that meet me remember my looks quite well. The first time it happens, I was 18. Please consider I lived in a city that has over 10 million people to try to understand the dimension and the possibilities. I remember I met a boy, and we were starting to talk to a boy on the phone every night, and things were going okay. I had no hurries for dating. We met through a friend in common, and we enjoyed talking. This particular night, after a couple of weeks talking, he called me as he used to do. He was acting all weird. I asked him what was wrong, and after much insisting, he said, "How come you be acting like that if we just met a couple of hours ago?" Silence and confusion. I genuinely didn't have a clue of what he was talking about, but he did not believe me. After many comes and goes in the conversation, he finally started believing me, but he also explains to me how he saw me in a bus on the way to our friend's house. He also lived close to her. And after calling me by my name, we started chatting, and everything in the life of that strange thing and mine matched, including our freaking names. Except, of course, what I was doing in that exact moment. I was in my ballet classes with my ballet mates, and many people saw me. So, it was not an astral projection. It was not his imagination, since the bus was packed and at around 5 p.m. In a super crowded city, it was definitely not a weird portal or anything. My name is not common either. After talking for a while with me, he assumed I didn't want to hang out with him since he had asked me to meet already a couple of times and I had not accepted. So after seeing me close to his place, after refusing his invites, he was kind of pissed and thought I was avoiding him. So he just got down of the bus in his stop, and the rest is history. No way to know what happened to the thing. It took us more than an hour convincing each other of our version of events. I don't think he ever totally believed me, and if it wasn't because of how upset he seemed of me lying to him, probably I would have felt the same way. I still can't explain it, and I can honestly say I did not like that feeling. Before that, I never knew, never heard, never cared about doppelgangers. But it happened again, and again, and again. The only clue I will leave is that that thing has followed me overseas and over different cities and situations, and the people that have seen me don't know each other. They neither interact and, of course, never told them about this. As I've said before, my looks are not what you'd call traditional in my country. I'm not claiming to be ugly or pretty, I just stand out. It's the clothes I choose, the hairstyles I've tried over the years, the few scars I carry, the shape of my face, mouth, nose, and eyes, the slightly crooked bridge of my nose, the accessories I wear. My style has changed with time, but it's never been ordinary. And as for my features, well, they are what they are. In my early 20s, I spent a lot of time with a new group of friends. They were cool. One of them was Jay. That detail matters because he wasn't just some acquaintance or a stranger who had seen me once in passing. We hung out many times. He knew my face, my voice, my body type, the way I walked, the way I spoke. Those are details you don't forget after spending real time with someone. Eventually, life pulled us in different directions. We lost touch until he found me on Facebook a couple of years later. It was a pleasant surprise. He had moved to another town, and so had I. We caught up, and from then on, we'd exchanged the occasional message. Months later, I received a DM from him one evening. It was abrupt, strange, not his usual tone. Here's how it went, as best as I can remember.
Jay, why did you ignore me? I stared at the message, not understanding a thing. Me. Huh? Jay, I'm asking why you ignored me last Thursday. I was baffled. For a brief moment, I remembered what had happened in part 1, but I brushed it off. Me. What are you talking about? He thought I was playing dumb, but after pressing the issue, he told me he'd seen me 2 days earlier in his hometown. Small detail. I didn't live there. I hadn't even visited in years. This is what he said. I was driving along Avenue when I saw you standing on a corner. I couldn't stop right away, so after I passed, I turned around to offer you a ride. I figured you were visiting my town. Me. Are you sure it was me? Jay. Totally. I went back and stopped right next to you. Those words sent a shiver down my spine. He hadn't just caught a fleeting glimpse of someone who resembled me, he had actually gone back to see me. Me. Was my hair like in the pictures? Jay. Yes. Me. My makeup? Jay. Yes to all. It was you. I didn't reply right away. What could I possibly say? Me. I haven't been to Q in 10 years. You know that. He went quiet. Jay. You haven't? Me. Not at all. I was here in M. I worked that day. Ask my boss. Jay. Well, it was you. Me. After a pause. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Jay. This is all so weird. Me. Please. Jay. I went around the block, came back to the corner, and stopped right beside you. Me. Next to me? Jay. Yes. I rolled down the passenger side window. You were barely a meter away. You looked straight at me. I didn't like that he said you. That wasn't me, but I let him continue. Jay. I asked what you were doing there and told you to get in. I could take you wherever you needed to go. The story had just taken a darker turn. My other self, or whatever it was, had interacted with him. And even though some part of him believed me, he still insisted it had been me. Jay, you just stared at me, listening carefully, but you didn't say a word. Then you turned around and walked away. That last detail was a small relief. I would never walk away from someone speaking directly to me. I asked him to describe what I was wearing. The hairstyle, hair color, every detail matched. After hesitating, I told him this same thing had happened before. He was as shocked as I'd been. Now the roles were reversed. He was the one asking questions, but I panicked and didn't tell him the whole story. That night I could barely sleep. Once could be a coincidence. Maybe it happens to anyone. But twice? With different people who didn't know each other, in different cities? That was too much. Basically, because of my very particular looks, style, taste, and name, I've been chased by something, or someone, that looks exactly like me. It even seems to share my name and birth date. You might be wondering if I've tried to find this mysterious double, and yes, I have. Child registries, social networks, asking people, and nope, nothing, nada. The people who've seen me have never had another encounter with the thing that might be me, but isn't me, ever. This part is 3.5, because it doesn't include an actual sighting, but rather a file. I know it sounds super weird, but bear with me. Before I continue, I have to say I have a very uncommon first name and very uncommon last names. Yes, in my country we use two. If you Googled my full name, nothing would come up, because I've never used it in full. nor do I like leaving internet footprints. Also, I checked again in child registries and no one else has my complete name. Anyway, around 2009, I was in a very distant country from where I was born. Visiting, living life, you know? But there's one thing I hate. I'm allergic to everything, and it always shows up on my skin. Wine, mosquito bites, certain medications, weird foods, you name it. So one day, I woke up with a really bad rash on my face, and I knew I had to see a doctor before it got worse. Once, I left it unattended, and it got way too bad. So I woke my friend up and told him we had to go to the hospital. I want to point out that I was in one of those beautiful little countries where everything is tidy, the rules are strict, and records are kept thoroughly. It wasn't a chaotic, massive country with millions of people and lots of room for errors. To make the next part of the story even stranger, I was in a tiny town that you could walk across in half an hour with almost no tourism, neither foreigners. There was even a local newspaper that listed the births of the week. That tiny. So, no room for surprises. We took the car, drove to the hospital, and I tried hard not to scratch my face as we entered the ER. I didn't speak the language at all, so my friend took my passport for registration and kindly asked me to sit while he filled out the forms. He took a few minutes, came back, sat down next to me, and just stared into nothing, looking confused. I asked what was wrong. He said, nothing. He told me they were going to call me soon. And they did. The nurse and doctor had a long file in their hands, but I thought maybe that's just how thorough those countries were. We went back to his place with a ton of medication for me, and I was starting to get better. But he was still acting weird. I could tell something was off, and despite my insisting, he kept saying everything was fine. Finally, the next day, when I felt much better, I convinced him to tell me what was going on. He said, "You already had a file in that hospital." I was shocked, confused, hesitant. We sat in silence for a few minutes. I'm sure the only thing I said was, "What?" The hospital, in a tiny country, in a tiny town, the first time I'd ever been there, already had a file on me. Same complete name, same birth date, and the same passport number. And no, the number wasn't stolen because I had renewed my passport just for that trip, and my friend knew all that. He had strictly invited me there since I didn't know his country. He obviously asked more questions, but the nurse got very protective since all the info was confidential. So, even though my passport number was brand new, we never found out if my other self had been in that same ER a week before, or 20 years earlier. What did we do? Google and social networks. He insisted on trying to find me using the exact passport name, but as I told him, it was pointless. Of course, nothing came of it. And no one else in that little town had ever seen me, or anyone resembling me for that matter. Glitch in the matrix? Wormhole? Someone with my same name, birth date and passport number who just happened to be there before I had ever set foot in that country. Well, we never found out. So, after some years of jumping from one country to another, I went back home trying to settle down for a while. However, having been abroad for years, my social circle was a little broken, so I started attending a lot of social events to surround myself with new people and create a circle of friends.
I met Elle at a Christmas party that was really cool. A group of friends who traveled a lot threw a party for people from other countries who happened to be in ours, so they wouldn't spend it alone. The place was crowded with people from Asia, the Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and all over the Americas. These parties started happening once a week, and they were really fun. But that night, I met this adorable couple from New Zealand and a guy from the Philippines, and we spent a lot of time talking about our travels. I met Elle too, and since he was a good dancer, we shared many songs, and he joined us in the chat for a long time. After that party, I ran into Elle at a couple of other events with some other friends. Although we were never close, we became very familiar with each other, and of course, we exchanged Facebook contacts, so we also had a lot of friends in common.
Little by little, I got a new job, moved, and started doing other things. I began missing the parties of that friend group, but remained active on Facebook, using direct messages with people from that group every now and then. I had many invites to parties and events I couldn't attend because I was busy with my own activities. After some months, I just gave up on that social area of my life because I had so much to do. Later on, it was spring, and my city hosts many festivals, parades, expos, and has a very nice vibe during that time. I went to a few of these events. One afternoon, I got a DM from L on Facebook. Luckily, this time it was pretty straight to the point. L, you didn't wait for me. By this point, I had a feeling I knew what he was talking about. But since I didn't want to look like a crazy paranoid, I played dumb. Me, what? L, last Saturday. I swallowed. I saw it coming again, and even though I had chills, curiosity got the best of me. This situation was becoming scary yet thrilling. I couldn't help asking. Me, what happened on Saturday? L, the bike parade. I sighed. I knew there had been a spring bicycle parade the previous Saturday, but I had to work and couldn't go. At that time, I was working weekends, and all my co-workers saw me there. Yeah, I asked later. I also knew what was coming. Me, but I wasn't there. L, yes you were. Me, okay, what did I do? L, you rode past me, waved and smiled at me. You were wearing a royal blue dress and described the dress. I got chills again. I did have a dress like that. Of course, I asked about my hair, shoes, everything matched. L, then I told you we should meet at the end of the parade for a drink or whatever, and you nodded, smiled, and continued your way. I didn't see you afterward. I'm not going to repeat the "it wasn't me, yes it was" dialogue, because it happened almost the same as the other times. At least L wasn't mad. He attributed our not meeting to the crowd, but didn't believe for a second that my other self wasn't me. He thought I was playfully trying to fool him. I gave up trying to convince him and ended it with a "gotcha," so as not to leave any weight or weird thoughts on him. When we said goodbye, I immediately texted a girl from my job. Me, we did meet on Saturday at work, right? Yes, we did. Why? Me, and we were there around noon, right? Yes, all the way until 6. The parade had started at 10, so it ended between 12 and 1. Are you okay? Me, yeah, I was just mixing up the days a little. No, I wasn't. Thanks. No probs. I remember calling my dog to join me on my bed afterward. I snuggled with him, thinking over and over about a situation that was becoming way too common, yet totally abnormal, and had no answer. And that's where the story ends, for now. But what would you do if this happened to you? Have you ever experienced something so inexplicable, so uncanny? Would you chase your double or let it remain a mystery? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Could you handle seeing yourself somewhere you've never been?